So everyone, of course, is interested in what's the next wave of entrepreneurship. Not just here in Vietnam, but even in Silicon Valley. This is always the topic of conversation. So, of course, we've got a long history of creating startups in Silicon Valley, and AI is definitely driving that next wave right now, the current wave and the coming wave. There's a long history. Of course, it dates back to Fairchild, HP. You can still see the HP garage in downtown Palo Alto, all the way up to more recent Stanford alums like Larry Page and Sergey Brin. But you can see a lot of the emphasis at Stanford and where a lot of the alums have been providing support is in the area of AI. So we have the HAI Center, it stands for Human-Centered AI. Led by the former provost of Stanford, John Etchemendy, alongside Fei-Fei Li from the computer science department. And then the other big trend that I want to mention alongside AI, which I think is really important to mention in almost all the talks that I give these days, is the climate crisis. And so this is the other area where Stanford is investing heavily. So John Doerr, of course, famous from Kleiner Perkins, one of the premier venture capital firms. He's donated $1.1 billion to Stanford to create the new Doerr School for Sustainability. And so there's also a lot of overlap between the AI area and climate. So I'll point out some of those opportunities as well. So I've often been saying these days that our current education system was built around this 20th century problem of creating workers, employees for manufacturing. But this was the 20th century challenge. We've largely solved this challenge. And now, increasingly with AI, machine learning, combined with robotics, there's a new challenge for the 21st century. Currently, the things that are routine in the economy, that can be predicted from current trends and data, these kinds of tasks and routines are increasingly being taken over by machine learning and robotics. So the implication then is that we need to become experts in the improbable. We need to combine our abilities for creativity and innovation with these new technologies to find the areas of value, the problems that can be solved through these new technologies. So Stanford has long recognized this. This is why the founders of Stanford, alongside engineering institutes and labs, wanted to have art museums and places that would spark the imagination and the inspiration of the students, because the technology in and of itself is only going to do the things that we can imagine that it can do. So these are the two mega trends that I see in the coming years. And so for those that are innovators, for those that are prospective entrepreneurs, I think it's good to identify what are these big mega trends that are going to play out in our global society over the coming 10 years or 20 years. So clearly AI and clean tech. And so I'm going to focus first on investment trends in AI and machine learning as I see them from my vantage point at Stanford and Silicon Valley. So the first thing to point out is just how quickly the AI market has been growing. So this is data from 2016 to 2020. This trend has been accelerating over time, actually, and we've seen a 55% compound annual growth rate in the amount of venture capital going into the AI space. So it's no surprise that we're seeing a lot of startups and a lot of breakthroughs in the technology, given this level of exponential increase in the amount of investment going in. A former student of mine traced the data back even farther, and so as I was pointing out, this has been accelerating over time. So it had been growing at 42% per year, now up to 55%, so this is an accelerating trend. So some of the key trends for 2025 that I see, let me get into those. So first is expansion of Gen AI applications. So Gen AI is already becoming integral in marketing and content creation. Tools like Amazon's Nova Reel allow the creation of multimedia content. Of course, Sora from OpenAI, Pika, which spun out from Stanford. And so corporate platforms are going to increasingly be created to embed AI into these multimedia. We've seen the chatbots and large language models in text, but this is quickly expanding into video and images and the combination of them as well. AI agents for development. So this is a startup that I had into my entrepreneurship class at Stanford just this past quarter, Replit. So this is an AI agent that will allow you to build the first version of your product in 5 minutes. So this is a really powerful tool that allows prospective entrepreneurs and prospective innovators to test out new ideas much more quickly. And so there used to be a bottleneck in creating that first version, but now the bottleneck is going to be more, what ideas can you imagine that can be built and that should be built. So the competition right now between organizations like OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, they've been pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into large language model development. And we've seen the spectacular progress that's been made with ChatGPT, Gemini, and others. Once that competition plays out, the next wave of competition is going to move to more small models, on-device, edge AI. So we're already seeing some startups, alumni from Stanford, that are working on creating these small models that are going to work on edge devices and have much lower latency than models that have to send data up to the cloud and back down again. So one example here that I've been working with is Nexa AI. So they've been creating these AI models that can leverage all of the open source LLMs out there and run on device with much lower latency. So that's a key trend to look for in 2025. Compact, efficient models, optimized for local data processing, reduced reliance on large cloud infrastructure. And so this will become much more of a topic of conversation after the competition plays out amongst the large models. The next trend for 2025, advances in AI hardware. So, of course, more and more specialized AI chips are going to come along. There's already, clearly with NVIDIA's growth, this bottleneck around access to GPUs to train AI models. So supercomputing collaborations, focus on energy efficiency, faster AI processing, more specialized AI hardware, more access to AI chips on the cloud. Ethical considerations in AI development, so ethics and regulation. So one of the key drivers here, so Stanford's got this human-centered AI institute already, so you can see that direction coming. But the balance between that and the regulatory scrutiny that's going to come in the upcoming months and years. So increasingly, governments are adopting AI, so through Palantir, OpenAI, many of these large AI players are now competing for government contracts. And once they start getting more government contracts to deploy AI in things like government applications and military, then you're going to see a lot more regulatory scrutiny because the regulators need to know what's going on in that black box behind these AI models. So it's kind of been the Wild West up until now, but I expect in the coming year, in the coming months, that there's going to be a lot more attempts and a lot more experimentation by governments in how to regulate AI. And so the compliance issues are going to become a lot stronger. Data ops in AI development. So this is a big issue that a lot of companies are now encountering. So we often say that you have to learn how to crawl before you can walk, and you have to walk before you can learn how to run. And so a lot of companies, the data ops infrastructure is not really well developed enough to be able to take full advantage of the power of AI. Companies' data is very messy. It's not housed in a way that's very easily accessible. The security is an issue. So there's this whole emerging field that a lot of startups are working on now around data ops and the infrastructure to be able to take the most advantage of the capabilities of AI. So AI's influence on consumer behavior. This is another big one. This is perhaps one of the early, most near-term areas for the impact of AI in society. So consumer habits, online shopping behaviors. The current YC batch, for instance, has these AI shopping agents in the batch. So personalized AI recommendations are going to start driving more and more of the purchasing decisions that consumers make. So social media platforms are also a place where you're going to see, the next generation is tending to get their purchasing ideas and do their shopping via these platforms. And so that's a prime location for AI shopping agents, AI-driven recommendations in people's purchasing behavior. So I want to point out a few specific examples. I've been talking at this high level about kind of generalities, but let's talk about a few specific startups. So this is one that I and a few friends invested in about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, in World AI. So this is probably the fastest growing startup that I've been lucky enough to invest in. So we invested at a $30 million valuation. 2 years later, the valuation's now north of 500 million. So they're doing AI-driven virtual character development. So the initial adopters here are video game developers, and so you can interact with characters in the video game, a very realistic kind of scenario and conversation. But you can imagine as this technology develops, these AI virtual characters will be increasingly adopted in the movie industry as well. Next area that is interesting and really at the cutting edge is the agent-to-agent economy. So we're all now familiar with, as humans, interacting with a single AI agent. So the AI to human interaction is there. But increasingly, as you get more AI shopping agents, more agents for various purposes, these agents are going to begin to interact with each other. So large companies like Visa or MasterCard that are in the payment space are already starting to look into what should the technical protocol be for agent-to-agent payments, agent-to-agent transactions. So that's a really interesting unsolved problem currently. And as we get more agents interacting in the economy, is going to be a more pressing one to solve. So AI agents are increasingly managing transactions autonomously. There's got to be some human oversight. When you have payments, then again, the regulatory issues and compliance become more important. And there's potentially complex issues here because the AI agents are, of course, learning over time. There's potentially these weird behaviors when AI agents interact with one another. You guys may have seen the circle of honking in San Francisco. So the Waymo vehicles in the parking lot at night all start honking at each other uncontrollably. So Waymo's working on solving that issue. So that's just one example of kind of quirky AI behavior when you get these kind of agent-to-agent interactions. You don't want a circle of payments happening like the circle of honking in San Francisco. Foundational models beyond language. So this is largely an area of research, but starting to bleed over into industry. So the foundational models are expanding into vision, robotics, multimodal AI applications. And so eventually we want systems that not only can handle just text or handle just images, but that can process the combination and produce the combination of multimodalities seamlessly. So advanced diagnostics and healthcare, automated video analysis, other creative applications, these kind of multimodal foundational models. So this is one example. I think I won't play the clips in the interest of time, but this is a startup LipDub that's doing machine learning driven translation. So the clip on the left I recorded on my way to Japan. I don't speak Japanese, but I was able to sit in the San Francisco airport and on my phone record an introductory message for the students that I was going to be teaching in Japan. And it automatically translates it in just a minute or two into Japanese. The one on the right I recorded in Mandarin. I'm trying to learn Mandarin to be able to communicate better with my wife's parents, but I'm still at a very beginner level. So I recorded this, sent it to them to see if they would be fooled by the AI-driven translation. And I got a message back very quickly, oh, your Mandarin has improved so much. To which I then had to send a subsequent follow-up video saying, no, this was actually AI created. But it'll use my voice, it'll change the lips to look more accurate to the translated language. Oops, we're going to get them both at the same time. And then this increased adoption of AI and more of our data being put into AI systems means that cybersecurity and privacy are going to be big trends and still unsolved problems. So AI-driven systems are increasingly being built to detect and respond to these cyber threats in real time. We're going to need more behavioral analysis models. AI is playing an increasing role in securing data pipelines. Federated learning hopefully will allow AI to train on decentralized data without compromising privacy so much. Healthcare and finance will obviously be early industries to adopt these, given the importance of privacy and data security. And so it's going to be a tricky struggle to balance our needs for innovation with stricter and stricter regulations around data privacy and security. So we already heard about AI in education, but I also think this is a really exciting area, no surprise, as a faculty member. Basically, in short, AI gives us the dream that education scholars have always had of what they call the Six Sigma. So this is the increase in the learning capability that students have when they're working one-on-one with a personal mentor. That's obviously impossible to scale, which is why we have classrooms full of students. But AI allows us to potentially achieve some portion of that dream of every student having a one-on-one mentor to be able to learn the material in a customized way just to them. So a few other concrete examples. These are former students of mine, like InWorld, another startup that's growing incredibly rapidly. So Max and Andres were students in my class. They worked on this in my class back in the spring of 2021. A few months after the class, they launched this real-time accent correction AI software. So for applications initially like call centers, where workers can get paid a higher level of salary if they have a more standard American or British accent. This allows workers from more rural regions to earn the same high salary by automatically changing the accent to match the caller on the other end of the line, increasing the efficiency of customer support calls. So they've also been growing incredibly quickly. Braid Health is another one that I invested in along with some VC friends. They're doing a software platform for AI and data interoperability for healthcare, for things like cancer diagnosis, CT scans, things along those lines. So to wrap up, last few slides, training generative AI models on enterprise data. Most of what we've seen so far have been consumer applications, but training on enterprise data, as I'm sure we'll hear in the next panel with Bao and Li Jie, is much more tricky. So the hallucination issues, the data privacy issues all become much more critical when you're talking about enterprise applications. And the interoperability also with all of the other enterprise software becomes more important. And so integration is going to be a key value driver because you can't have an AI tool that just works on its own. And then the democratization of AI computing. So I mentioned this with the AI hardware example. So this is Lambda Labs is a startup that I invested in. That's a cloud provider for accelerating AI development. They have a competitor, of course, so many competitors in this space. But this is going to be more of a trend given the bottleneck around access to GPUs. Another interesting startup, this is created by a former postdoc from our department, Eesley. So this allows you to upload an image or two, and with just a paragraph of text to be able to create images of yourself like these, where now increasingly my phone camera roll is these AI-generated images rather than actual photos. This, of course, leads to a lot of issues with misinformation and the believability, the trustability of digital content. And so that's a whole space as well for startups and companies to try to solve. So these are other examples. I was never president. I was never in the Oval Office. I am not a surfer. I'm not in that good a shape. But these are the things that AI can do, again, with just a couple of images and a short paragraph of text. So there's a lot of ethical issues as well. I've been in touch with the founder. I'm an investor in this company as well. And so they're restricting it right now to the number of individuals and the types of scenes that you can create because of the ethical concerns. And then the AI advancements are also interacting with all the advancements going on in robotics. So that's an area that's been attracting a lot of investment, and I expect will continue to be a trend. So sanctuary AI is one example there. Agility robotics is another example. So lots of exciting stuff there. So before I wrap up, because I think climate change is such an important critical issue for humanity in the coming years, I just want to mention briefly about this intersection between the megatrend for AI and the megatrend that's going to play out over the coming decades for climate change technologies. So we need, obviously, a lot of innovation in climate tech. And so AI has an important role to play here with carbon tracking, optimization of renewable energy on the grid, predicting climate risks, having models for climate-related insurance, integration with IoT devices. This is, again, John Doerr with the ribbon cutting at Stanford. And the new dean of the School of Sustainability arguing that there's no other issue that's more important in its effect on humanity and the planet. So I couldn't agree more. And we've seen, of course, the dramatic rise in CO2 emissions. This is not going to go away immediately. You see the impact of the pandemic was just a blip in the shutdowns. So a couple of examples here just to spark some ideas. This is actually a startup that I worked with out of Taiwan. They came to Stanford for 3 months to work with us. So We Think AI is applying AI solutions for petrochemical development. And so this can optimize the production of petrochemicals and reduce the level of carbon emissions in the creation of petrochemicals. Nautilus is another example. So this is cargo drones. You can autonomously driven cargo drone, flown cargo drones. You can optimize the design, the aerodynamics. They have a huge backlog of orders, investment from Amazon. Solar design, so the startup that spun out of Stanford a couple of years back, Aurora. So they're planning the deployment and helping with the financing of solar projects. And so those are the key trends that I wanted to share with you that I'm excited about in AI and entrepreneurship in the coming years.